Good evening and welcome along. Welcome back to Mesme Politics. My name is Toby Lepati Mesme and it's Friday night. Just gone 7 o'clock, the 18th of December 2020. 1 week until Christmas Day and we are still at it, live with you for the next half hour or so. Bringing you all the latest from the world, the chaotic, crazy world of UK and US politics from a leftist perspective. There is a lot to talk about today. There'll be a lot to talk about tomorrow and over the weekend, and hey, it looks like it won't be stopping over Christmas either, so we'll just keep on going.
Prepare to die.
Because, why not? I'm not going to stop, unless the news stops, and it doesn't look like it'll be stopping anytime this decade, so we're in for a long haul. I genuinely can't see a slow news day for the next... Will Christmas Day even be a slow news day, or will we be getting news flashes about fishing criteria once we crash out of the EU? You know, it doesn't end. I cannot see it ending. Will there be a slow news day between now and 2030? I think not. There'll be slightly less hectic, but still immensely stressful and newsworthy days. That's your lot, you know? Okay, coming up on today's show. At about 7:30, or just before 7:30, we have a new poll that's dropped from Santa Comres. It's a UK poll. What is the state of things, according to that reputable pollster, between the two main parties, between Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer, nationally? We'll see the national state of play. Joe Biden has picked his nominee for Interior Secretary, and he's done what was asked of him by progressive advocacy groups and activists. Deb Haaland, a 35th generation New Mexican, one of the first two Native American women elected to Congress, is now President-elect Biden's pick to lead the Department of the Interior, which would make her the first Native American cabinet member, and here's the catch, she's actually a progressive. Finally, it only took, a month and a bit? We've scraped one, guys. We've got a progressive. Thank God. Oh, and hey, it looks like, touch wood, it looks like Rahm Emanuel has been blocked from any Biden appointments. So, good riddance. Goodbye. It's a decent day in terms of the incoming Biden administration. So we'll be talking about that, and also who else should we be pushing to put in the cabinet in these last few picks, including Secretary of Labour, and who's Biden left by the wayside. And now, to start off the show, COVID-19. Are we entering a third wave? By the look of things, this could get worse. This could get a lot worse. This is from The Guardian today. Hospitals in England had to divert patients 44 times last week. That's the highest number for 4 years. Growing numbers of hospitals in England are running short of beds and having to divert patients elsewhere and cancel operations as the NHS struggles to cope with the resurgence of coronavirus. According to the NHS figures, hospitals had to tell ambulance crews to divert patients elsewhere 44 times last week, and as I say, that's the highest number for 4 whole years. The pressures are being compounded by the numbers of NHS staff who are themselves off work because of the virus, with doctors and NHS leaders saying that frontline services will come under even more immense strain in the next few weeks. The warning comes as the UK recorded 35,383 daily cases. That is up 14,419 from last week. Daily deaths 532. Total deaths 66,000. Northern Ireland imposing a 6-week lockdown starting on Boxing Day that could see the closure of all non-essential retail businesses. Paramedics from the Republic are to be sent to the north to help ease pressure on ambulance crews. Ministers have, as you know, put large swathes of the south and southeast of England into Tier 3, meaning 2/3 of the country, that's numbering 38 million people, are now living with the toughest restrictions. Rishi Sunak extending the furlough scheme by another month until the end of April. That will not be the last shift in that direction, so watch that space. And of course, Education Secretary Gavin Williamson has announced that secondary school pupils in England would go back to school after the Christmas break in a staggered way, prompting a widespread return to online lessons. This is very worrying. The previous second wave peak, recorded prior to the current surge of 14,712 patients in hospital, has been exceeded by us right now, heading into the third peak, which is a real thing, of 15,465 patients. Now, the total peak was the 12th of April in the first wave, 18,974. We're barreling towards that. It's very, very worrying. This is a third wave. Make no mistake, this is a third wave. People are risking their lives on the front line. People are giving their lives on the front line. Over 66,000 people are dead from COVID, directly from COVID-19. That doesn't factor in the excess deaths, that doesn't factor in the people that died from it, but it wasn't counted in, etc., etc. The actual number could be closer to something resembling 80,000. This is the state of play. We cannot let this become normalised. And it did not have to be this way. This could get a lot worse. And it's all happening much sooner than we thought. We thought January would be bad. This is the pits. Looking at the numbers, it looks like 50% maybe more than that, of people are going to be bubbling over Christmas, which is a lot more than I had initially thought. But it does look like quite a large number of people, but less than normal, are going to be meeting up over Christmas, according to some national statistics. Things are in a sorry state. There's no way around that. We just have to reckon with it. Another lockdown, another national lockdown, is imminently likely, especially considering what's happening over Christmas. So think about it. We're already in dire straits. This is deja vu. We're back here again. The tears aren't working. But add to that the fact that come, January, after Christmas, we're going to have fed the virus for up to 5 days. So the trajectory we're now on, which was worse than we thought it would be, which looks dreadful, by the way, is going to be made worse by the fact that we've spent 5 days unleashed. Which, hey, by the way, the statistics would tell us that would equate to 28 days of lockdown to get us back to where we were before that, which is already dire straits. This is an unmitigated disaster, and the people in government are absolutely worse than useless. Make no mistake, this is a failure of leadership. At the top, from Boris Johnson. The cabinet should hang their heads in shame. If any of them had an iota of integrity, they would do a press conference and say they believe Boris Johnson is unfit for the office of Prime Minister, because he is. This is the moment where you need to it's like get rid of Neville Chamberlain moment, right? That's where we are. Except, in our version of the world, Neville Chamberlain has remained Prime Minister through the war, and no one's been brave enough to get rid of him. And all the papers worship him. That's the state of play. That's what this is. That's where we are. Neville Chamberlain, famously the Tory Prime Minister who was basically got rid of, brought in a national government of unity, headed up by Winston Churchill, because he was very inept at handling the incoming war. So, these people, worse than useless. I mean, I don't need to repeat why these people aren't good at their jobs, do I? I don't need to repeat why this has been a complete failure of statecraft. We have not changed anything. We have no infrastructure that would render lockdown not the only option. Lockdown is the only option. It's rendered the only option because we have not expanded test and trace. We've not put these things in public hands. We've not fixed anything. The lockdown was a golden opportunity to fix something. We haven't fixed anything. Nothing changed. And now, as is the definition of insanity, we're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, and those different results are not coming. They don't exist. Nothing is changing. If nothing's changing, why do you expect this to get better? That is ludicrous. We're not doing anything different. We're just plodding along. The government is relying on and praying for a miracle recovery brought about by a vaccine, which may or may not happen, and if it does, they're hoping that we will all forget this and move on. And maybe they're right to think so. But I will not forget this. And I don't think you should either. None of us should forget the betrayal and the failings of this government through this crisis. They have shown themselves wholly unfit to lead. Any way you look at it, unfit. Zero COVID should have been the strategy we pursued. If not before that last lockdown, after it. I was advocating it before the last lockdown. And I'll be advocating it before, during and after the last lockdown. We could have got our economy up and running. We are an island. We could have utilised that. And I didn't expect myself to be advocating this position anytime soon, but close down the borders, shut it all off. Oh no, unleashing my inner nationalist. Don't have a nationalist bone in my body, but, you know, practically this is what you'd have to do. You'd have to shut off the borders, close it off, eliminate the virus, and then control what's coming in and what's coming out and make sure no COVID's coming in on or off the island. It's basically what they did in New Zealand. That's all I'm advocating. I'm not advocating we sort of turn into some sort of scary, jagged fence around the island sort of thing. But just until this virus is under control, get it eradicated here, get open, enjoy sporting events, enjoy the outside world, and, be like New Zealand. It'll be like New Zealand and Britain, the success story of COVID. That and, Cuba, South Korea, etc., etc. We could have done something like that. Uniquely. That's a unique thing we have that our European neighbours don't have, because they're, landlocked. We didn't do it. So, what is even the point? Great Britain, my arse. It's ridiculous. The only person I've heard advocating this, by the way, should have been Labour policy, is Richard Bergen and the Socialist Campaign Group of Labour MPs, which, why can't the Labour front bench get on board with zero COVID? There are scientists advocating it, there are public policy experts advocating it. People support it. Let's go for it, right? We don't even have to make the case. The case is ready-made for a strategy of zero COVID. It's an own goal by Labour. We could have got this and co-opted it and made it our own. Nope. And now we're heading out of the crisis. We didn't come up with any other solutions. We could have come out of this saying, look, we told you how you deal with it. We didn't. Now we can't say, ha ha ha, you did awful, because we didn't propose anything. And we could have done, because those proposals are there. The only person who can look the government in the eye is Richard Bergen, chair of the Socialist Campaign Group. He could look at the government and go, I did have a solution. Starmer can't do that. He's not said anything. It's been, besides the circuit breaker, which was a welcome move, finally, a small glacial movement forward, besides that, Labour haven't said anything. They've said, we don't like cronyism. Make the thing public, please, for goodness sake. Good, common sense. They haven't advocated a broader vision of how we get out of this. They should have proposed an alternative roadmap. And that alternative roadmap would have been credible. That alternative roadmap would have been well received when there was an echo. No leadership at the heart of government. That could have got us somewhere, but it didn't. And we may well pay the political price for that going forward. Now, next story. Joe Biden has picked his Interior Secretary nominee. And it's good news. This is MSNBC.
For the first time ever, which is almost unbelievable, but it's true. For the first time ever, a Native American is going to be a cabinet secretary in the United States. Deb Haaland's mother was a Navy veteran, a Native American woman, a citizen of the Laguna Pueblo. Her father was a Norwegian American and an active duty Marine. Deb Haaland went to 13 different public schools before graduating from high school. She put herself through college. She put herself through law school. She went on to become the head of the Democratic Party in the great state of New Mexico. While she was head of the Democratic Party in that state, she helped flip that state to Democratic control in the legislature. Deb Haaland ran for Congress herself in 2018. She was able to run as, in her words, a 35th generation New Mexican. 35 generations of her family. She won that race. She and Sharice Davids from Kansas became the first two Native American women ever elected to Congress, both elected in the same year. Deb Haaland has been a very high profile and sort of instantly effective member of Congress since she got there. She was vice chair of the Natural Resources Committee as a freshman. She was chair of the Subcommittee on Public Lands. Now, as Interior Secretary in the Biden administration, Deb Haaland will be in charge of public lands federally, as well as in charge of all the agencies the federal agencies that exert so much, almost unimaginable amounts of power over the lives of Native Americans, including, of course, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Nominating Deb Haaland to be Interior Secretary, nominating the first ever Native American to the cabinet is a big deal. That is a milestone, a historic milestone for us as a country. You think about the sweep of us as a nation.
That is excellent news. That's good stuff. There we go. Hey, good news story. It's not all bad. Excellent pick. Haaland for Interior Secretary. She's a very inspiring woman. She has a very impressive resume. And, you know, she's not a full-throated, you know, democratic socialist or anything like that. But she is a progressive. She's undeniably, genuinely, and I'll take this, quite progressive. Okay? She says the right things on climate change. She is, like I say, Native American. By the way, it's shocking. Native American has never been in the cabinet of the country that is theirs. But she has an impressive record, as I say. She now, I mean, that's, you know, quite a good sort of rhyme of justice, if you like. That now, controlling the land, you know, the Interior Secretary is a Native American. That's very good. And I tell you what, about time. I wrote an article about this the other day, and it's, you know, representation is all well and good. If they're all just lobbyists, it's useless. You know, fine, it's good for the optics, but if you have a diverse cabinet of lobbyists, they're still working for the 1%, and everyone's left out of all the groups these people purport to represent. Haaland is going to represent a lot, figuratively and literally, in terms of Native American populations in the US. This is a blow to bigots, and she actually has the progressive, transformative ideas to go along with it. This is what we need in terms of representation. It's not just people, you know. I'm from Goldman Sachs. I'm also black. You're from Goldman Sachs. You're working for Goldman Sachs. You're not going to help African American communities. This lady is Native American, and she is progressive. She has bold ideas. That's how you do diversity. It's a diverse set of people bringing together all those different perspectives of all those different communities that make up America, but they all bring ideas. They're not lobbyists. They're not in the pocket of the military-industrial complex. They work for the people they purport to represent, right? They work for the American people, and they represent and are a voice for those communities that have been so long underrepresented in the cabinet. They will get a voice in terms of that person, right? That is amazing. That's brilliant. And I'm pleased I can praise Joe Biden for something for once. Good job. And Rahm Emanuel, who just Google his record. It's a really disgraceful record. I can't, you know, it's, I'll get it up here, right? Rahm Emanuel's record of promoting neoliberal politics, attacking progressives and covering up police violence thoroughly disqualifies him. There was widespread speculation he might be Secretary of Transportation. That's Pete Buttigieg, who is actually an improvement. I know, not a great pick, but very much an improvement on Emanuel. Or maybe the next United States Trade Representative. He's out. It's not happening. He's called Yeah, I'll read this. I'll just read this. There's going to be a little bit of language. Emmanuel, who was accused of spewing obscenities at union members who wanted to do more to save the domestic auto industry, saying fuck the UAW, and at progressives who wanted to ramp up the fight for a public option in the Affordable Care Act, which is what Obama promised, calling them fucking retarded. In terms of, he covered up the police murder of a 17-year-old, Laquan McDonald, in 2014. Police shot him 16 times. Closed 50 elementary schools, shuttered half of Chicago's public health, mental health clinics, lavished wealthy neighborhoods and pet projects with public dollars through the tax increment financing. Repeatedly broke the city's promise to rebuild public housing. And of course, oversaw a police department that cost taxpayers more than $540 million in abuse and misconduct settlements during his time in office. Disgraceful man, disgraceful record. The fact he was at the heart, in many ways, of the Obama administration tells you a lot about the Obama administration. The fact he's not in tells you a lot about the fact that we are nudging Biden away from that sort of toxic, affront, anti-progressive politics, right? Rahm Emanuel has been blocked. He's not coming in the cabinet. Good. Just another thing on Haaland. The GOP cannot block her. If they do, I want to see the biggest ruckus you can imagine made. And I don't think they will. I mean, they might do. She's left of centre, so they'll probably label her a Marxist or some other sort of weird racialised dog whistle that they'll roll out. Democrats cannot let that happen. It has to be stopped. She has to be the next Interior Secretary of the United States. And when I see that, I'll believe it when I see it. When I see her sworn in, I will say, I'm a little bit more optimistic now about this administration. I have a little bit of hope that this phenomenal individual has a seat around the table. And just on another thing, the fact that, I'll get onto Bernie Sanders in a minute, but firstly, the fact, and if I was supporting one of them, it would be Sanders. So I'm not, one of the sort of Warren cheerleaders. But the fact a talent like Elizabeth Warren is not in the cabinet or being utilised, I would have, Treasury Secretary was the obvious place for her. The fact she's not, this person is genuinely, really progressive, right? The difference between her and Sanders was Sanders had a movement. Warren was basically a policy wonk. But Warren, she would be made for advancing our priorities in the Treasury. Elizabeth Warren, not given the gig. Not given the gig as VP, first of all. But then not given the gig as Treasury Secretary. And now it looks like she's not getting a gig in the cabinet. And there are ways that it can be more or less guaranteed that she would be replaced with a Democrat in the Senate. The argument about that is ludicrous, right? It's not real when they say we can't take Warren or Sanders. Sorry, guys, our hands are tied. They probably won't get confirmed, and we don't want to shrink the majority in the Senate or kill the chance of a majority. No, it can be handled, and we need these people in the federal government. As for Bernie Sanders, we need him for Labour Secretary. Okay, if I'm not getting any Elizabeth Warren in the cabinet, at the very least, throw us the bone of Haaland for Interior Secretary, and now give us, please, I want to see, how we all mobilised behind Haaland for Interior Secretary? I want to see that done with Bernie Sanders for Labour Secretary. That man is more fit, suited, deserving of the position of Secretary of Labour of the United States than anyone else I could think of. And that guy there, speaking up for workers, speaking up for unions around that cabinet table means we know we have a genuine, committed left-wing voice in the room around the cabinet table. Let's see that. Again, I'll be very happy if I see that. I'm very sceptical of it. That's just where I am, I'm very sceptical of it. Okay, coming up now, we are going to be, by the way, if you're watching the screen, we did have a slide that we were meant to be we meant to have on there of soon to be Secretary Haaland. And I've got to get rid of that now because I've got to shift to the polling. So draw your attention to the screens. We're going to the polling now. But this is Secretary Haaland. Soon to be, hopefully, Secretary Deb Haaland. Okay. New polling from Santa.com Res. This was from the 11th to the 13th of December. Changes with the 29th of November. So as you see, Conservatives and Labour have both gone down a point on the last poll by this organisation, with the Conservatives on 38% and Labour on 37%. That would produce, if replicated nationally, Conservatives 304, that's a loss of 61 seats, and Labour 257, that's a gain of 55 seats on the disastrous 2019 result. What would happen in this situation? Well, likely a new election called, because Labour would not have a majority, they'd not be able to stitch together a progressive majority, and at the same time, the Tories don't really have anyone that would prop them up enough. So there'd be no majority, the Johnson administration would be a lame duck and would be voted with no confidence, triggers a general election, or they'd trigger a general election themselves. One or the other. That is what would happen. Someone says, wish she was in our cabinet. Yeah, same. To be honest, she'd handle this a lot better than Johnson and Hancock. Okay, so looking at this, the parties are neck and neck. The default at the moment is the parties are neck and neck with a slight edge for the Tories. They're creeping in. Labour had a slight edge before, then all the Corbyn stuff happened, and now, that self-inflicted wound by Starmer. We see the Tories with a slight edge. These results would favour Labour to a point, and these neck and neck results do favour Labour to a point. If we have a general election, it's 40% for Tories, 40% for Labour. Labour have more favourable prospects of finding a way to govern in a hung parliament, or at least holding the Tories completely hostage in a minority Johnson government. And that's good, right? The thing is, will that still be the same come 2024? Very likely not. But if a general election was held going into next year, looking at the way the polling is now, the Tories would be in trouble. That just how it is. Starmer should be hoping, this is the only plausible path to number 10 for Starmer. Starmer should be hoping for a minority government. Starmer's goal should be a minority Labour government out of a hung parliament that can foster electoral reform. Get proportional representation in and you unleash the progressive majority that is there to be tapped. 50% or more of MPs that would support a centre-left government. You can unlock that if you... And that centre-left government would have voices like us on the left, maybe in the form of a new party, proportionally represented, and in basically leveraging our influence over that centre-left government. That's where we want to be, right? That's where we want to be. I don't want, in many ways, a Labour majority, because then Labour will refuse to reform anything, and working with anyone else will break down, and Labour can shift to the right, and there's nothing us plebs can do about it, basically, if they've got a decent majority. A Labour majority is mathematically unlikely. Of course, I'd be happy if the manifesto reflected Starmer's 10 pledges and that won a majority, but electoral reform is the most optimistic thing I can see is 2024 fosters a Labour minority government that brings about electoral reform. The more likely outcome is a Tory majority, but that scenario is what we should all hope for. That being said, we were all hoping for a hung parliament in 2019, Now, chaos, Brexit-related chaos, if there's any hold-ups at the border in January, if any supply chains are affected. At the same time, the Christmas disaster, the images of hospitals overflowing, more backtracking on lockdowns, all of this could damage the Tories and basically stymie and stop in its tracks that incoming feel-good boost in the new year when vaccines get this stuff under control. If they mess this up so much, it could inflict more damage. I don't think we're heading for a Black Friday moment. If we were going to have that Black Friday moment, it would have happened already. It's, all this stuff has gone on, and far more incompetence and ineptitude from the government than during the Black Friday debacle. But the Black Friday debacle debacle, sorry, can't speak, did foster a 20-point lead for Labour. And that landslide Tony Blair majority, it undermined fatally the major government. The Johnson government has not been fatally undermined. I don't think it will, but more damage might be inflicted, and we may see Labour leads return if it all goes to pot. And the job for Labour then is to jump in, propose ideas, as they look set to do in the new year, once they've got people's attention, and also come up with alternative plans now so you can go, told you so, when the Tories basically, sit on their own faces again and get it wrong. Because, what has to be done is clear. Let's see leadership from Labour, please. And we can talk about dither and delay and chaos from the Conservatives, and strong and stable leadership from Labour, as is the reality, Chaos with Ed Miliband looks not so bad now, does it? Not at all. Okay, thank you for listening today. We are back. We don't stop because it's the weekend. We're back tomorrow from 7 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time with all the latest, probably some more on Brexit. If not, then that'll be Sunday. And, just the latest on everything going on in UK and US politics. That's what we do. I'm Toby Lepati-Mesme, and I bring you all the latest from a leftist perspective for half an hour at the end of the day, every day. I hope you have made safe plans for Christmas more than anything else. You're not doing anything stupid. Be careful. Your elderly relatives will still be there in a few months, and maybe you want to postpone a bit.
Prepare to die.
We heard talk in our house of, should we meet up with this bit of the family outside, etc., etc. A meal outside, in terms of the weather, I'm just saying no, but, you could maybe go for a walk with an elderly relative in the outside. A walk. Keep your distance, that's doable. The outside is relatively safe in terms of COVID transmission if you keep your distance. So if you go into like a forest with your nan and keep 5 feet apart or whatever it is, that's not exactly posing a risk to anyone, and that's probably fine. Please don't sue me if I've got that wrong, and I accidentally inadvertently kill your nan, but I think that's fine. Inside, Christmas dinner with the elderly relatives, which is what they won't want to remind you, it's what Tory ministers were saying, I'd say is a no-go, alright, this year. Let's just stay clear of that. Let's keep Christmas within the immediate family, unless we have no immediate family, in which case, if you've got no immediate family, one bubble, fine. But if you've got immediate family, you've got a wife, you've got kids, just stay, I don't want you alone at Christmas, but unless you're alone at Christmas, just be careful and play it on the safe side. Someone says Ed Miliband is improving. We live in hope. Good one. Yeah, yeah. Do you remember 2015? David Cameron was like, you can have stability with me or chaos with Ed Miliband. In a parallel universe, we're laughing. Brexit didn't happen, and we're just sort of coming out of the other end of 5 years of a Miliband government. That funny. In a parallel universe, that's what's happened. Ed Miliband is sky high after his handling of COVID-19, rising in the approval ratings and heading for a landslide re-election in the 2020 election that was postponed to 2021. In a parallel universe, that's what's going on. The Miliband Clegg Coalition. Austerity light. Alright, thanks for listening. I'll see you soon.